So you're thinking about making a move to Star, Idaho, and you're trying to identify if this is the perfect place for you and your family. Today, I'm going to walk you through a short list of some of the worst things about living in Star, Idaho. I am somebody who truly thinks that looking at the pros and the cons is so important when you're deciding where to live, and we can talk about the pros all day. There is a whole video on it on my channel, so go ahead and check that out. But I also think it's important to look at the cons, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that there's enough on the pro side that's actually going to draw you into a place, but you got to be able to deal with the cons and the not so perfect things about a town, because guess what? Little secret, absolutely nowhere is perfect, and Star, Idaho for sure is not going to be perfect for everybody. But I'm excited to get into it right now. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Chase Dolan, and I'm a local real estate agent up here in the Boise, Idaho area. If this is your first time to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below so that you're the first one to know everything that you need to know about living, working, and playing here in the Boise and greater Treasure Valley area. And as we're talking about moving to the Star, Idaho area today, I get calls, texts, and emails from people every single day just like you who are thinking about making a move up here to the Boise, Idaho area. So whether you're moving in 9 days or 9 months, I would absolutely love to help you kind of feel a little bit more confident in your move up here and make it as smooth as possible. So whether it's call, text, email, you can schedule a Zoom directly on my calendar. All of my information is down below, and I would love to chat with you. But let's go ahead and dive into what we're here to talk about today. The not so pretty, the not great things about Star, Idaho. And a little disclaimer, when we're talking about the worst things about Star, Idaho, if you're listening to this and you're like, I actually really like all of these things, these are weirdly on my pro side of the list, that is completely normal. A big part of all of this is that there's going to be towns that are a better fit for you than for other people, and vice versa. So if you're looking at that and you're like, okay, all of these things actually really line up, that is a huge sign that Star may actually be perfect for it. But to get started, we're going to talk about a pretty easy low pickings of something that is at the forefront of Star, Idaho for anybody that lives in the area right now. And it is the traffic and just lack of infrastructure that Star, Idaho has right now. For some context, Star right now has just over 15,000 people calling it home. Here in 2023, when we're talking about population increases, Star is actually growing quicker than any other city here in the Boise and greater Idaho area. There are a lot of reasons for this. People are really drawn to the small town atmosphere, more land, you have a little bit more open space out here. It still has a little bit of that small town Idaho feel, the proximity to Eagle and Meridian, all sorts of different things. Again, check out the video on all of the pros in Star, Idaho. But with this growth, our city planners were just not ready for it. When you're driving through downtown Star, you're gonna see that it's basically one 2-lane road going west and east, and then there's 1 or 2 roads kind of cutting through. You pretty much have one major intersection here off of Star Road and then Highway 44 or State Street. Star is still a very small town. Even as the population continues to grow, the actual downtown center, when we're talking commercial, things to do, everything like that, Star really doesn't have a ton going on. When you're looking at getting from one end of Star's downtown to the other end, this is just under 2 miles, so it is really not a long stretch. This can be one of the busiest stretch of just traffic if you're trying to get in or out of Star. It's something that as an agent who I'm going out to Middleton on the other side of Star, we're going out from Eagle, Boise, I'm all over this valley. I really do try to avoid driving through Star's downtown because it really does kind of shrink all of the traffic in coming from Boise and everything. State Street is one of our busier streets. It shrinks it all into a 1-lane road going about 25 to 30 miles an hour for a while, so it can really start to back up. And the traffic and the road kind of congestion is not the only thing. When I was talking to some clients who've lived in Star for a while, as well as looking on niche.com at the reviews and the forums and everything like that, the overall infrastructure in Star is something that tends to always run into issues because the growth is just far outpacing it. Even the water treatment plant every once in a while starts to meet its capacity because it just wasn't ready for this crazy growth. Right now, Star's growing at about a rate of 13% every single year. So there's some things that have to be changed, but just know you're gonna have some growing pains with a city like this. And now taking this into the next thing that is a struggle about living in Star Idaho is, even with all of these infrastructure needs and the growth kind of outpacing all of the city planning, there's a big resistance to growth in the Star Idaho area, and this is a common theme that if you've watched any of my videos, you know. People that have lived here in the Boise or really greater Idaho area for a while, they are resistant to growth. They don't want to see this town that they fell in love with, that they've raised their families in, what makes it so great. They don't want to see it completely change and turn into a big city that people are fleeing from. And we see this big time in some of these more outskirt rural towns of the Middleton, Star, Kuna. They're trying to hold on to that small town charm for as long as they can, and that's a good thing. But when you couple this with the massive growth that has already happened in Star and the resistance for new developments, new subdivisions, everything like this, in today's market, a lot of these developers are already being told by different cities, counties, whoever's making the approval process, that they need to expand roadways. They have to expand on the water treatment plant or make their own. They need to build more schools. They need to contribute to the infrastructure that will contribute outside of their subdivision. Now, this is not meant to be a debate topic of, do we think that development is good or bad? That's not the point of this at all. The point of this is just, if you're thinking about moving to the Star Idaho area, you have to know that there's gonna be some growing pains. These things will get fixed, they will get ironed out, we will find our equilibrium, but it may not happen tomorrow, next month, or next year. You might have to deal with it for just a little bit, but again, like we talked about at the top, this might be something that is actually appealing to you, a town actually fighting to stay a small town. Now moving into the third thing that may make Star less than ideal for you and your family is there's just not a lot to do. Star is a small town. Like I said, the downtown is a very quick strip. There's really not a lot going on. There's a few different restaurants. There's one breakfast cafe. They're starting to add more restaurants and shops and such, but for the most part, Star really doesn't have a lot going on in the city itself. This means if you want to go out to dinner and you don't like one of the 2, 3, 4 places that are in Star itself, you may be driving 20-25 minutes to get to Meridian, to get to downtown Eagle. Even if you want to shoot out more towards Nampa, you're gonna have a little bit of a commute to get there. So if you're looking for a city where you want to have close proximity to all of the different services, dining options, places to go shop, everything like that, I will tell you right now, Star is not going to be the best place for you. And a lot of this has to do with, as well, Star and the communities kind of around it that are popping up are extremely spread out. This is one thing that make those communities so desirable, is that you're going to have a little bit more space from your neighbors. It's a little slower paced, all of these different things. But when we're looking at actual time to get places because of the distance that you have to travel, Star is so spread out that even to get to Albertsons or Ridley's, the grocery stores in Star, you may, even living in Star proper, need to drive 10, 15, 20 minutes to get to the grocery store in a small town where, again, there's only about 15,000 people. And this spread out and that kind of commute and distance is the next thing that we're going to talk about as the things that don't make Star perfect for everyone. And we're just going to talk about the distance to get to things. For example, getting to the highway from Star, Idaho will take you pretty much almost a full commute. To get from Star to Highway 84, especially, we're not even going to talk about during rush hour, you're probably going to be looking at about a 20-minute drive. And again, this is just to get to the highway. So let's say that you're actually working down in downtown, or you're working in Southeast Boise, Caldwell, anything like that. You're going to have to tack on that extra time as well. So a commute from Star isn't rare to be 30, 40, 50 minutes long, which in our town is extremely long. Commuting times here are not anything crazy. But like I talk about in a lot of my videos, if you're moving from somewhere where traffic and a long commute is just normal, this relative kind of long commute here may feel completely normal to you, which again makes this less of a con. As an example, one of our really good friends lives in Star, just outside of downtown in one of the suburbs that's been there for about 20 years. He works out by the Boise airport. When he accounts for rush hour, getting to the highway, getting to and from kind of off the highway through, again, the middle of rush hour, he's having to leave the house anywhere between 6 and 7 a.m. just to get there before 8 a.m. This is a pretty extreme example of the longest commute that you basically could have coming from Star, but it's important to know, depending on where you're going to be located for a job, where you want to be spending most of your time, When we're looking at our overall map, everything seems pretty close together, but just the way that the traffic and the growth and the streets and everything are laid out, you can be traversing a pretty long commute if you're not careful. And on a similar note, when we're talking about the fifth thing that makes Star not absolutely perfect, is on the same note of kind of having to travel for commute, for the services, everything like that. A big reason why this is such a major thing for people living in Star is, again, Star is such a small downtown with not a lot going on right now that there really aren't many jobs in Star, Idaho itself. This means more than likely, if you're not working remote, you're gonna be traveling to one of the neighboring cities. And in a place like Boise, where a 20, 30, 40-minute commute seems so crazy once you get to know people and you get to hear what they're kind of experiencing, this can start to feel a little bit more separated. And if I'm gonna be working in Meridian, if that's where I wanna be, all of these different things, why don't I try to live in North Meridian even? It's about 15 minutes from Star, but I just cut my commute in half. It'll be interesting to see if this starts to change over the next decade or so as Star continues to grow, because we've seen a ton more jobs, company headquarters and everything popping up in Eagle. Will it continue out towards Star? Eventually, I'm sure it will, but right now, you're more than likely going to be traveling for your job. So just kind of keep that in mind when you know where you're going to be spending most of your time. And finally, to wrap this up, the last thing that we're going to talk about on the negatives of Star, Idaho today is, with all of this growth and all of this small town charm and all of the things kind of going on, a big thing in Star right now is the affordability, especially when we're talking about housing, is declining big time. Now, I want to be clear, this does not mean that it is 100% gone. You can still get a very nice home in Star. If you're looking for kind of more of that smaller entry-level home, mid 300,000s is not off the table. But if you're really looking budget first, that is your main focus, Star may not be the best place. You might want to be looking out just a little bit farther into Middleton, Caldwell, potentially even one of the more outskirt towns. A big reason for this is that overall growth. It's the Valley, Boise, and the surrounding areas, kind of the housing jump that's happened, that is still being fed into Star. Something that we see kind of the dynamic between neighboring cities of Star and then Eagle is we're seeing the development start to shrink the gap just a little bit, and we're seeing developments that are in Eagle that people really want. We're starting to see a lot of those pop up in Star because that's the demand. That is what people have been looking for. Developers wanted to build all of these different things. So you're going to have a lot of communities with waterfront property. You're going to have bigger luxury homes. You're going to have acreage homes. You're going to have things that are really, really cool, but they don't come at that affordable price point. We're not seeing as many townhome builds. We're not seeing the track home kind of production builds that are going to lower that cost of a home. This means if you can afford some of these homes, Star, Idaho is an absolute gem, because when we're talking in relative terms, you're still going to pay less than Star than you would in Eagle, potentially Meridian, Boise. Whew. I never like kind of harping on the negatives or really focusing on all of the things that are wrong with a certain part of town. Star, Idaho can be a great place to call home for a ton of people. It is one of the ones, again, watch the pro video that I released on my channel. People love living in Star, Idaho. But it's definitely one when we have people relocating from bigger cities, anything like that. If you're looking for kind of the hustle and bustle, you want to have various coffee shops to go to, you want to be able to go shopping, meet people for dinner, all of these different things, Star is going to have some options for you, but it's really not going to have a ton. So you're going to find yourself going to some of the neighboring cities pretty frequently. If you like that separation and you're like, okay, I'm okay with a 20-minute drive to go to dinner with our friends, if that means that I can be separated and not have that kind of hustle and bustle every single day, Star could be a really good place for you. But just be honest with yourself on, what am I actually looking for? What is going to be best for me and my family? And if this matches you, Star could be great, or potentially Star just isn't meant to be on your list. If you have any specific questions, this is exactly what I do. Like I said, I'm a local agent here in the area, so if you have any questions at all, I would love to help you figure out what's the best place, what's not, what are the things that you should be considering. Call, text, email, whatever works best for you. All of my information is down below. I would love to chat. But at the end of the day, these were some of the things that popped up the most when I was looking into what are the things that people don't like about living in Star, Idaho. If you think I missed something, go ahead and drop a comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But outside of that, I will see you all on the next one.